I finished drawing the fieldstone texture on all these pieces, but all it's got right now is the outlines. What I want to do is add a little bit more texture to the face of it, so that when we do the dry brushing later, we don't end up with just flat blocks of stone. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of tin foil. It doesn't need to be a very big piece, which is good because I'm running out. Okay, so I've got my piece of tin foil. I'm going to crumple it up, not too hard. So I've pulled it back out again. You don't want to crumple it up too much when you're doing it. If you do, the texture ends up being a little bit too soft and too fine, and it doesn't really get picked up on the foam. So now I'm going to take this, crumple it up again on top of the tennis ball, just to give myself something nice and easy to hold on to. So what I'm going to do now is take one of these pieces, take my tennis ball, and just start mashing the tennis ball onto it. So from this distance, it doesn't really look like much has happened, but if I bring this up nice and close to the camera, you can see that it's added a little bit of a texture to the surface of these stones. That's pretty much what we're looking for. That'll get picked up nicely by dry brushing later. The next step is to mix up some paint and start painting. I'm going to mix up a basic gray using some cheap dollar store acrylics, and then I'm going to make a slightly different gray with some brown added in. This is the base gray color. It's very dark. It looks almost black, but once it gets painted on and we get the other layers on, you'll notice that it's not as dark as it currently seems. The other layers will be quite a bit brighter. So the colors aren't super different, but these are just the base tones. It is going to look a little bit more different as we start adding highlights to it. First I'm going to apply the gray to most of it, and then I'm going to randomly distribute a little bit of brown on there too. Should give a little bit of variety to the stone and keep it from looking too flat. All I've got here is an old brush, real cheap. Now that the base coat is dry, it's time to mix up a different coat. We're going to go for sort of a medium gray here, and then we're going to do another coat at the end that's just light gray. I've decided not to bother with doing all the brown. I might throw a little bit of a brown tone in a few places, but I want it to be a very neutral color in the end. And if it looks a little boring, that's fine. Okay, now it's time to start dry brushing. All I'm going to do, dip the paint in. You don't need a lot of paint in there. You want to get it a little ways up the bristles like this, but you're going to end up trying to get most of it out on the paper towel here. So start by squeezing the excess out there. And then it's just a matter of trying to get rid of it. So you can see I've still got a little bit too much paint on the brush. And I drip paint all over this thing. Hooray. The first coat of dry brushing has had time to dry out completely, so now I've mixed a whole bunch more white in. I've got a very bright color here. It's a very light gray. At this stage you don't want to do very heavy dry brushing. You just want to add that little bit of extra light to the surface. So you can see, even compared to the original dry brushing, this is much, much brighter. So before I glue on the support pieces, what I'm going to do is take the template that I used for the bottom pieces and cut about that much off the end of each support piece. That'll leave me with a block that's about as long as the width of the bottom pieces that I can glue on each end. So that should give me enough support on the ends while also giving me plenty of support along the middle. I finished painting, peeled off the blue painter's tape, and I ended up taking off the paper face here. I don't think that really matters very much, but it does make me think that I probably wasted a bunch of time by carefully trimming that and peeling off only part of it. Oh well. So now all I'm going to do is take my support pieces and glue them on. Okay, I realized that gluing together these pieces on my cutting mat was probably not the best plan, so I took that away. And I can also see I put too much glue on. So I'm just going to take some paper towel and wipe away the extra. Now that I've got all these glued together, I've got a problem because they seem to have curled up quite a bit. So what I'm going to do, stack them all up and then set some sort of heavy weight on them. This is a mallet I made a few years ago. I don't think it's going to be quite enough, so I'm going to grab some more weights and put that on top too. To figure out where to put the support piece on the back, I just made myself an extra template, this time out of foam core. I'm not using it to cut, I'm only using it to mark a line. So I just line it up with the top, and then just draw a line across. So now I'm just going to take my glue, put a bit on here, and attach it there. And just putting more weight on there to once again keep it fairly level as the glue dries.